And what gang are you actually assigned to investigate?
ATK.
What does ATK stand for?
There's various different reasons, but the reason that has been told to me was Ace's top killer.
Young and Ace's situation has escalated dramatically after his name surfaced in federal court as the alleged financier behind Foolio's murder. Foolio, who was reportedly celebrating his 26th or 27th birthday at the time, was fatally shot in what investigators suspect was a planned attack. While police are still searching for a clear motive, prosecutors have already begun using Ace's own music as evidence, breaking down his lyrics in court to suggest a connection to the crime. The case appears to be gaining momentum, and if the murder-for-hire allegations hold true, Ace could be facing a federal charge that carries the possibility of life in prison. Here's where things get wild. It's not just what's being said about Young and Ace, but how he's reacting while the feds tighten their grip. On social media, he's all confidence and bravado, posting like nothing's wrong. But behind that tough talk lies a federal investigation that's been quietly unfolding for over a year, one backed by testimony, evidence, and, most damningly, his own music. Prosecutors have been dissecting his tracks, claiming his lyrics aren't just art but confessions, songs where he allegedly bragged about orchestrating Foolio's murder. The situation has turned into a high-stakes game where every move matters, and Ace, though not yet in custody, seems to be running out of room to move. It all started when one of the alleged shooters flipped last year, telling investigators that Ace offered $10,000 for Foolio's death. That sparked the first chain reaction. Then, in court, prosecutors played Ace's tracks, Who I Smoke and Game Over, arguing they were coded proof of a murder conspiracy. That was the second domino. Now, with Ace officially named a person of interest, the investigation is in full swing, and the pressure is undeniable. What's most alarming is how he's responding. Instead of laying low, he's dropping more music that many believe sounds like thinly veiled admissions. What once looked like clout chasing now reads like evidence, and the feds are treating it exactly that way. If things continue down this path, Ace could be facing the most dangerous moment of his career, and possibly his freedom. Foolio's murder on June 23, 2024, his 26th birthday, sent shockwaves through both the streets and the hip-hop community. He was gunned down in a Tampa parking lot, and all eyes immediately turned to see how his longtime rival, Young and Ace, would respond. At first, Ace took the expected route, posting a somber message saying he didn't condone the violence and that things between him and Foolio were cool. It felt like the kind of controlled statement you make when you know the spotlight's about to swing your way. But then came the music, and that changed everything. In the months following the shooting, Ace dropped a series of tracks filled with lines that fans couldn't ignore. The lyrics, cryptic but pointed, sounded to many like he was claiming responsibility for Foolio's death, hinting that he funded it, ordered it, and watched it unfold. He never denied the speculation. In fact, his deliveries seemed to feed it. What listeners once brushed off as shock value or clout chasing began to look far more serious under federal scrutiny. Because while fans debated whether he was just talking tough, the feds were listening too, and they weren't hearing entertainment. They were hearing a confession. Now, prosecutors are using those same as ammunition in court, arguing that Ace essentially told on himself through his lyrics. They've played tracks like Who I Smoke and newer releases, pointing to what they claim is a consistent pattern of self-incrimination stretching back years. To them, this isn't artistic expression, it's evidence. And for Ace, that distinction could make all the difference between fame and a federal sentence. In Who I Smoke, Young and Ace and his crew were already crossing lines, naming fallen rivals, mocking their deaths, and turning real-life loss into lyrical ammunition. Prosecutors say that song set the tone, painting Ace as someone with a long-standing vendetta against Foolio's camp. Then came Game Over in 2023, released just months before Foolio's murder. Investigators now claim that track wasn't just another diss, it was foreshadowing. To them, it sounded like a threat laid out in rhythm and rhyme, a musical preview of what Ace was allegedly planning to do. Combine that with the songs released after Foolio's death, where Ace seemed to claim credit, and the feds believe they have a full timeline, 2020 shows motive and celebration of violence, 2023 shows intent, and 2024 shows confession. Layer on top of that the testimony of a cooperating witness who says Ace paid $10,000 to have Foolio killed, and the picture prosecutors are painting is clear, a pattern that spans years, all backed by Ace's own public record. What makes this case even more striking is how self-documented it is. Every track is on major streaming platforms, every Instagram post archived, every interview easily accessible. Investigators barely had to dig. Ace's art and online presence did much of the work for them. That's why the feds are reportedly so confident. They're not just relying on one shaky testimony, but an entire body of content that appears to support it. The witness, one of the alleged shooters now cooperating to avoid a life sentence, claims Ace put the bounty on Foolio's head and gave the order. On its own, that could be dismissed as self-preservation. But when prosecutors pair it with the lyrics, the timing, and the public rivalry that's been brewing for years, the narrative gains weight. Ace had motive, deep-seated street beef tied to the loss of his brother and close friends. He means the money, the network, the reach. And now, the government believes he had intent, broadcasted in plain sight through his own music. Several of the people arrested in connection with Foolio's murder reportedly have direct ties to Young and Ace's circle, individuals with both the means and the willingness to carry out such an act. Prosecutors argue that Ace not only had access to these people, but also the opportunity to orchestrate the hit. Foolio's trip to Tampa wasn't random. Someone knew where he was staying, which hotel he'd booked, and when he'd be there. That kind of coordination, investigators say, points back to Ace as the one who set everything in motion. Still, what the feds are missing is the one thing that can seal a conviction: direct proof. They're hunting for that undeniable link. A bank transfer, a phone call, a text message, anything that shows money actually changed hands to fund the hit. So far, the case rests on testimony, circumstantial evidence, motive, and Ace's own lyrics. That's compelling, but not conclusive. And that's why Ace hasn't been taken into custody yet. The feds are still building, quietly stacking evidence, and tightening the net until the case is ironclad. When they finally move, it won't be a warning shot. It'll be a takedown. As for Ace, his options right now are few and grim. His best move is to assemble a powerhouse legal team, attorneys who specialize in federal murder-for-hire cases and know how to challenge both witness credibility and the admissibility of artistic expression as evidence. The defense will likely argue that the cooperating witness is lying to save himself, that the lyrics are protected by the First Amendment, and that there's no hard proof tying Ace to the crime. They'll try to show he and Foolio had squashed their issues before the shooting, undermining the idea of a revenge motive. But even with top-tier representation, the odds are brutal. Federal cases have about a 95% conviction rate, and when prosecutors come armed with your own words and music as evidence, climbing out of that corner becomes nearly impossible. Even in the slim chance that Young and Ace manages to beat the case, the victory would come at a heavy cost. Years buried in legal warfare, millions drained in defense fees, and a reputation that may never recover. That's the reality of federal heat. Win, you still lose something. His next possible route is cooperation, the so-called snitch option. If Ace truly believes the evidence against him is overwhelming, he could try to negotiate with prosecutors, offering information about others involved in exchange for leniency. But in the world he comes from, that choice is practically a death sentence for his career. In hip-hop, being labeled a snitch ends everything: credibility, fan loyalty, and any hope of redemption. Even with a plea deal, he'd still likely face years behind bars and worse, permanent exile from the culture that made him. And realistically, if he is the alleged mastermind, there may be no one higher up to trade for freedom. That leaves the most desperate path: flight. The run option. It's not unheard of. Vanish before the indictment drops, disappear into a country with no extradition treaty, and live out your days as a fugitive. Places like Russia, parts of Africa, or certain South American nations have sheltered people before. But that's not a life. It's a shadow. You're cut off from family, from touring, from normalcy. You can't step foot on U.S. soil again. Freedom, in that scenario, comes with a different kind of cage, one built from isolation, regret, and the haunting weight of everything left behind. And if he tries to run but slips up, chooses the wrong country, crosses the wrong border, or lands in a place with an extradition treaty, then it's game over. He'd be shipped back to the US in handcuffs, facing even tougher charges, and a courtroom already convinced of his guilt. Besides, fleeing only fuels suspicion. If Ace were truly innocent, why disappear? That brings us to another path, turning himself in. Some defense lawyers might advise it, especially if an indictment feels inevitable. Voluntarily surrendering can send a message of cooperation, showing the court he's not a flight risk and possibly earning some leniency. But it's also a form of surrender, an acknowledgement that the storm is coming and there's no way to outrun it. Once you walk through those doors, you're no longer in control. The system is. The truth is, none of Ace's options are good. Every move costs him something: his freedom, his future, or his pride. Yet doing nothing might be the most dangerous choice of all. Because while he posts, performs, and pretends the walls aren't closing in, the feds are quietly tightening the noose. This isn't a rumor or internet speculation. It's a federal machine in motion. Every day, agents are collecting more evidence, interviewing new witnesses, and connecting the dots. And when they decide they have enough, it won't be subtle. It won't be a phone call or a warning. It'll be a full-scale operation, sirens, headlines, and cameras, because when the feds finally come for you, they make sure the world sees it. When the feds finally make their move, it won't be quiet or discreet. It'll be a spectacle. Picture this: a swarm of federal agents, news crews lining the streets, helicopters circling overhead, and Young and Ace being let out in cuffs as cameras flash and the internet explodes with his mugshot. The headlines will come fast, the media frenzy even faster. And once the noise dies down, reality will hit. The cold walls of a federal jail cell, likely no bond, and months, maybe years, spent waiting for trial. Inside that courtroom, prosecutors will dissect every lyric, every video, every post, using his own words to paint a picture of guilt. Watching your art turned into evidence, your fame into ammunition, that's the kind of psychological warfare few survive. This is what Ace should be preparing for, not posting like nothing's wrong. Now is the time to get his affairs in order, protect his family, and hire the sharpest legal minds available. Because when the indictment lands, there won't be time to scramble. The ones who treat it like it's not real are always the ones blindsided when it becomes very real. But beyond Ace, this is a wake-up call for the entire rap community. What's happening here isn't just a personal downfall, it's a warning. In today's world, lyrics aren't just lyrics, they're potential evidence. Every track, every tweet, every interview can and will be used in a courtroom if it fits a prosecutor's narrative. The line between storytelling and self-incrimination has never been thinner. So artists have a decision to make. Keep feeding the image that sells but risks your freedom, or start protecting your words like your life depends on them. Because as Ace is finding out, in the eyes of the law, sometimes the music speaks louder than you ever intended. Young Thug learned it the hard way. Bobby Shmurda did too. Same with Talko. And now it looks like Young and Ace is standing on that same edge. The lesson is always the same. What happens in the streets and what happens in the studio are supposed to be separate worlds. But the moment you start blurring that line, the law stops making distinctions. To the feds, there's no such thing as it's just music. Every lyric becomes evidence. Every video becomes a clue. And as Ace is now discovering firsthand, once those two worlds collide, there's no turning back. Now, let's take a look at how he's actually responding to all of this, because what he's doing right now might surprise you. After everything that's unfolded, the court mentions the lyrics dissected as evidence, and his name officially tied to a federal murder-for-hire probe, you'd expect Young and Ace to move differently. But his response? It's almost unreal. He's carrying on like none of it exists. No statements of innocence, no mention of legal counsel, no public acknowledgement of the storm around him. Just the usual music previews, casual posts, and snapshots that paint the picture of someone living life as usual. To his followers, it looks like confidence. To prosecutors, it might look like arrogance. But to those who understand how federal cases work, it looks like denial, quiet, dangerous denial. Because here's the truth. When your name starts echoing in federal courtrooms, it's not a rumor anymore. It's a reality. The government doesn't casually toss around murder-for-hire allegations. If the feds have mentioned your name, they already have a roadmap. They've got witness statements, phone records, digital footprints, and financial links, all being cross-checked and compiled into something airtight. By the time your name surfaces publicly, the investigation is far deeper than anyone on the outside realizes. And yet, Ace's behavior suggests he doesn't see it that way. His silence feels less like strategy and more like disbelief, like he's hoping if he ignores the noise long enough, it'll fade away. But federal investigations don't fade, they tighten. Every day that Ace posts another studio clip or vacation photo, agents are in offices connecting dots. They're analyzing messages, revisiting testimony, and waiting for the exact moment when everything lines up. And when it does, there's no warning, just sirens, flashing lights, and handcuffs. It's not dramatic for the sake of drama. It's how these things work. The feds move quietly for months, and then strike once, decisively. What makes this even more alarming is that Ace has watched this play out before. He's seen other rappers, Young Thug, Bobby Shmurda, TK, face the same pattern. Songs used as evidence, social media posts treated as confessions, prosecutors using art as ammunition. The blueprint isn't new, yet it keeps repeating. The difference is some artists learn from it. Others don't believe it'll ever happen to them. Ace seems to fall in the latter group. His silence might be confidence, or it might be fear masquerading as calm. But in either case, it's a risky bet when the opposition is the federal government. If this were a movie, this would be the quiet before the third act, the part where the main character still believes he's in control, unaware that the walls are closing in. But this isn't fiction. This is real life, and real life doesn't pause for denial. Whether Ace admits it or not, the clock is ticking. Each day he spends pretending nothing's wrong as another day the case against him grows stronger. And when the feds finally move, and they will, his calm demeanor won't protect him. The time for pretending it's not happening is over. What he does next could decide whether he fights for his freedom or watches it disappear. But that calm isn't strategy, it's denial. Staying silent when the feds are circling isn't strength, it's dangerous, wishful thinking. Ace seems to believe that by ignoring the noise, it'll fade, that if he doesn't feed the fire, it'll burn out on its own. But federal agents don't waste time or resources on empty threats. When they start showing your face in court and playing your music as evidence, it's not speculation, it's preparation. The feds move slow, but they move with purpose. And pretending they're bluffing might be the biggest mistake Ace has made yet. The feds don't label you a person of interest and then move on, they dig deeper. Maybe Ace believes staying quiet is a form of control, that keeping calm and not feeding the headlines is the smart play. And to be fair, that could be straight from his lawyers. But what he might not realize is this. The feds aren't watching his Instagram stories, they're studying his life. They're in conference rooms reviewing evidence, cross-checking timelines, tracing payments, and interviewing anyone who's ever been close to him. Every day Ace pretends it's business as usual. The investigation grinds forward, building the blueprint for his downfall. That's the real disconnect. Ace thinks silence equals safety, but to the feds, his silence just gives them more time. They already believe they've got the puzzle pieces. Witnesses claiming he paid $10,000 for a hit, lyrics they're calling confessions, and a motive they think fits too perfectly. His choices now are all heavy: fight and risk losing everything, cooperate and face betrayal's label, run and live as a fugitive, or turn himself in and face the music. Yet, instead of preparing for that storm, he's still acting like it's just social media noise. But the truth is, the feds move slow for a reason. They like their cases airtight. And when they finally make their move, it won't be a surprise arrest. It'll be the final act of something that's been building for months. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's coming. And when it does, Ace might wish he spent less time curating his feed and more time confronting reality. So what do you think? Is Ace's silence strength or self-sabotage? Should he be bracing for what's ahead? Let's talk about it because this story is far from over.